My name's Adam Monaco and I'm the Financial Controller for Hi-Tech Oils. With our national capacity, we can now service Australian companies nationwide. Of late, we have now expanded into the New Zealand market. Here at Hi-Tech Oils, we receive premium base oils and premium additive packs. Together, with our highly trained staff, we manufacture over 500 premium quality products. Hi-Tech Oils is Australian made and Australian owned.
Spectacular Newcastle, the venue for the 2018 Newcastle International Supermoto. This great sporting city is host this weekend to one of the big events on the Australian motorsport calendar. The fourth running of this event on the Newcastle Foreshore will see international riders making their way from America, Asia, Europe and also all parts of Australia to take part in one of the most exciting forms of motorsport on the planet.
This year it's like I've got a little bit more pressure, a little bit of a target on my back, so to say. Last year just rolled up, didn't expect anything and everything just fell in place and we come away with the win.
Yeah, I'm happy to be back here in Australia. Last year I come here, but it was not in Newcastle, it was in Perth. So it's far away from Germany to here in Australia, but I'm happy.
Yeah, definitely excited to be at the Foreshore this year. Last year at the Showground, we did have a few issues, but looking to put that behind us and come in here. We got a new bike this weekend that I'll be on, so I'm excited to get that underway and get into the racing. We did a practice just the other day at Cameron Park in Newcastle, and Marcus' class was looking real good out there, so he'll obviously be a threat for sure, but all the guys from Australia are ripping too, and they got plenty of other international riders coming from all over, so I think we'll just have to get out there and practice and then see in qualifying where we sit in times and go from there.
Perfect to have it here in Newcastle. No matter what motorsports, V8s, motocross, supermoto, it's great that you've got this event here in Newcastle. We always bring a good spectator numbers and the track's great. It's the first time I rode here at the Foreshore. The track seems like it's shaping up really good. The dirt's not too bad, it's got a couple of lines everywhere, so it's sort of working out for the motocross guys.
We prefer the dirt, a little bit more dirt on the track, definitely. But there's some guys here at this event that are equally, if not better, on the dirt.
Back home in the States, we usually run tracks pretty similar to this, pop-up tracks, real tight, technical, so seem to be right at home. We'll have to be out there and find out for ourselves, but excited to get out there and see how the track turns out.
The 2018 Newcastle International Supermoto has brought some new challenges and risks, most notably for the riders here this weekend are these big orange water barriers. Now they go around the entire track, they define exactly where they go, and as a motocross rider, these are quite daunting. Now, through this section here, very tight, as we can see just behind me, there's not a lot of places to move, but the problem is that the guys come through here so tight and so close that their elbow is actually almost down touching these barriers. Now we've seen it in the past that a lot of the riders have actually hit this with their hands and broken their hands, and we have even had a few injuries yesterday with them hitting their elbows. So it's one of the big obstacles and risks that the guys have got to work with. Also here, this is a street circuit. We're standing in the pits of the V8 supercars, and right here is a speed hump. Now this is right in the middle of the turn. Not ideal for all of the guys to come through. We've seen a few of the guys trying to pick the line between the speed humps. You can understand that as you're trying to tip into these turns and you're hitting these speed humps, the wheels actually come off the ground. So it's another one of those things that the riders have got to deal with if they want to get out there and win any of these races this weekend at the Newcastle International Supermoto.
Spectacular Newcastle. It's great to be back here on the Foreshore at Newcastle for the fourth running of the Newcastle International Supermoto, proudly sponsored by Visit New South Wales, and it's great to see so many people turning out. Danny Ham, it's great to see you here as well for this spectacular event.
It is a spectacular event, you're right, with the crowds getting down to the Foreshore, a free event for everyone to come down and check out what Supermoto is all about.
There's a lot of crowd all the way from around the Hunter region coming down here to take in this international event now, with riders from the USA, Europe, New Zealand, and also making the trip across from Western Australia, getting ready for the first of our FIM Oceania races here as the riders take off on their warm-up lap. You get to see some of this spectacular circuit very tight here at the start of the circuit. Before we do that, let's have a look at the highlights from the Australian Supermoto races that were held on the Saturday afternoon. Good start there with everyone just making it through the first chicane, Danny, as they head off down the foreshore.
It seems like it's a pretty wide track, but you're right, it is very tight going into that, especially with the amount of riders we had. And on screen there, Craig Anderson, the motocross rider, trying his hand at Supermoto.
Yeah, first time for 10 years, I think, that he'd ridden a Supermoto machine. But there's one of the international stars that we spoke about, the American Gage McAllister, multi-time AMA champion and a pretty spectacular rider.
Gage was very fast all weekend long, but the guy they were chasing was Marcus Klaas. Man, he was in a class of his own.
He certainly was. You could just see him there with the 1A plate in the white leathers just ahead of Gage McAllister as they come out and head blast down the foreshore. There he is going around the outside of one rider. You can see the clear differential there, the extra speed that he's able to carry through that very tight and tricky section as well.
And these back markers played a big part all weekend long. Just dealing with them to make sure that they stayed in front of everyone was a task in its own.
There he comes across the line to take the victory in race number 1. The international rider Marcus Klaas, as you mentioned, Danny Ham, he was in a class of his own, took the victory from Gage McAllister. Race number 2, it was pretty much the same story again. The top 3 riders blasting down into the first chicane, and Marcus Klaas took off and got a very good lead over the rest of the field early on. Gage McAllister held on for as long as he could.
Certainly kept him honest all weekend long, but their number 1 also out of the track. Our last year's winner from the Newcastle International Supermoto was Adam Miller. He had a bit of a tough weekend.
Yeah, there's also someone having a tough weekend. That's Craig Anderson on board bike number 100, multi-time Australian champion, but doing a pretty good effort here this weekend, as we said, considering that he hadn't ridden for 10 years.
But it was all Marcus Klaas who takes race number 2 and gets a perfect score.
Race number 3 was more of the same as Marcus Klaas led down to the line, but this time no Gage McAllister. He'd had contact with a barrier and injured his arm and did not front the starter for race number 2, which left Craig Anderson getting off to a great start and sitting up in second place with Ben Attard. A good start from him on board bike number 12.
Never bet against Craig Anderson off the start. Brilliant starter, and you can see how fast he was there. But Benny Attard, a much better race this time around, kept Craig Anderson honest all the way to the end.
No surprise though, because Ben Attard was a star here last year as well, wasn't he? And as they make their way down through the chicane, you can see the style of Ben Attard, but it's all about this man at the moment. Marcus Klaas, he is in a class of his own. Craig Anderson managing to hold off Ben Attard, as you can see the rest of the riders filled through. And Adam Miller, also last year's champion here at the Newcastle International Supermoto, hanging on for a strong place in this race as well.
Craig Anderson a little twitchy into that corner that time around. Each time on the bike, he got a little bit more comfortable and the speed came along. And Miller, right here on the number 1 machine at the end of this race, would give Attard a strong fight all the way to the finish line.
Yeah, they're very close as they make their way through the chicanes and down the foreshore. Big move there from Tom Taparis on board bike number 7, the Australian Supersport Championship contender and former motocross rider, putting in a great effort here at Newcastle. Well, red flag stoppage. That's Iki Morita has caused that red flag with a crash early on with only a couple of laps to go. The race has been declared. No change in the overall result, though. It is Marcus Klaas once again that takes the victory. That's 3 from 3 to give him a perfect score of 75 points and retain his Australian championship over Ben Attard, Damon Gibbons, Andrew McLeish and Gage McAllister, who finishes in 5th place despite not fronting the starter for race number 3. Trophy presentation for the Australian Pro Supermoto class. Graham Boyd presenting the trophy to Marcus Klaas, now a dual Australian Supermoto champion, backing up his result from Western Australia last year. And speaking of backing up, most of the riders in that Australian Pro Supermoto class are now backing up for the first of our FIM Oceania Supermoto races. A highly credentialed international field here with the world number 2, Marcus Klaas, 5-time American champion Gage McAllister, Damon Gibbons, along with a whole heap of Australians, Ben Attard, Andy McLeish. This is going to be an absolutely spectacular race. 26 riders fronting the grid. First row of the grid is the international flavour with Marcus Klaas starting from the middle of the front row of the grid on bike number 1. Oh, smoked a little jump there as the field gets away down towards the chicane for the first time. Looks like everyone is starting to get through there cleanly, but it is Gage McAllister on bike number 25, the 5-time AMA champion, that leads Danny Ham as they head down through the foreshore for the first time.
Marcus Klaas knows he needs to get out there and put a big charge on straight away. Gage McAllister is the only rider out there so far that's been able to match the speed, and I know he doesn't want to let him get away too quickly in this one. Gibbons back there in 3rd place, and then Craig Anderson right there on the number 100.
Yeah, great start from Gibbons. I thought he may have even got pinged for a jump start penalty there, but it didn't sort of do him any favours because he hasn't got off to the best of starts and just starting to drop off the back of the first two a little bit as they come through the dirt section for the first time. Look at the style of Marcus Class though.
Straight around the outside as they entered back onto the tar there, and he has moved himself into the lead. The big question now is Gage McAllister going to be able to keep up with him? Remember, he's coming off an injury from yesterday where he actually hit one of the barriers with his bicep muscle and cut it open, so it's a big effort just to even be on the bike.
Yeah, it certainly is, and this track certainly doesn't look like you get any rest, and he's doing a pretty good job to try and manhandle the machine at the moment. Great start there from bike number 217. That's Andy McLeish from the Sunshine Coast in Queensland, doing a pretty good job at the moment. Oh, Ben Attard, we jump on board.
Some interesting lines right there. He's running very wide. This track does not allow that. You've got to hit your points on every turn. Again, slightly wide there, but it's a different entry into the dirt section here.
Looks like a fair amount of desperation there from Ben Attard early on in this race. You can see the leaders just starting to get away, and he's trying desperately to hang on to the back of Andy McLeish.
This is a great battle between these two. Attard has found more speed each weekend, as too has Craig Anderson, but the big surprise for me, Gibbons right there on the 147, a relatively unknown rider, has really come out here and put his name out there for everyone to see straight up.
Yeah, he's made the trek over from Western Australia and making every poster winner. Has had some strong results so far this weekend and looking pretty stylish as he comes down to the U-turn to make his way back up the foreshore. Makes that bike look like it's a Pee-wee 50.
Absolutely tiny. Really throwing that thing around as we go on board with Craig Anderson. You get to see these lines right now. Anderson going right between those speed bumps, and then they enter right here into the dirt section where we believe that Anderson should favour this whole part of the track.
Well, Craig Anderson, of course, a multiple Australian Supercross and motocross winner. Oh, very sideways there. You can see the camera angle, how it changed completely. He's gone up the inside. Has he been able to make it stick? I think he has as they come out of the dirt section, moving up one place, Craig Anderson.
I don't believe Gibbons realised he was that close as they came into that turn. You're right, there was a bit of a moment there for Gibbons as he entered onto the dirt. The back end stepping right out, and Anderson jumped straight onto that opportunity as we see McLeish now jumping on the back of these two as well.
And Ben Attard not out of the equation either, just trying to hang on to the back of Andy McLeish. You can see McLeish going around on board 217. We could have a very close four-bike battle here if Attard can just pick up that little bit of distance. But I'll tell you what, over the last lap, these two have been battling Anderson and Gibbons, and what it's done is it allowed McLeish to catch right up onto the back.
Absolutely right there at the moment. It's all about the different lines coming through the dirt. Very hard to pass on the tar section anywhere, and this is where all the passes seem to be getting made as they go over the little double just here right before the finish line. The ground is looking pretty good at the moment. A little bit of water overnight has helped and given these guys a little bit more traction. Yeah, the dirt section is actually fractionally shorter, Danny, than what was originally planned due to the conditions last weekend here in Newcastle. The track organisers had to change a little bit of the track layout, but still an extremely spectacular circuit here. And this is one of the big braking areas where the bikes are great to watch, and there's a fair crowd down there looking at it too. As the riders make their way through the tighter section, let's have a look at a replay here. The 217 in the background, bang, hits the barrier with his arm. Now this is exactly what Gage McAllister from America did yesterday. It really tore him apart, and that bicep muscle made it very difficult, and you can hear it just here. That very small tap as they go past those barriers doesn't seem like much, but at around about 90 kilometres an hour, hitting the handlebars that steer you, it can bring you unstuck very quick indeed.
Well, just as we saw yesterday with Gage McAllister, our American star on bike number 25, he hit the barrier yesterday. Great to see him back here today, Danny. Obviously riding with a little bit of pain and discomfort, and a great effort from him, all things considered.
15 laps as well. This is a long race, and any kind of injury or fatigue that you've got from previous races is really going to play against you as you do the rest of these laps, and he's got a long way to go.
Yeah, 15 laps with no rest at all on this circuit. You can see how hard the riders work down into that chicane and how hard they're working on the brakes as they get the bike stopped and turned in, and as we know with Supermoto, carrying massive lean angles while the bike's sideways as well.
A big thing to note here is what we mentioned just before about getting your lines and getting your points. You really need to make sure each lap is clean. It's very much a road race track this year. You really got to be fast and get all those points exactly where they need to be.
And also the entry to that first dirt section looks extremely tight when you've got to slow down, as you mentioned, from quite high speed into the dirt section. You don't want to be carrying too much speed into there.
You don't want to be on anyone else but Craig Anderson as they go into the dirt. Here is the battle, though, back there between the two Husky riders of McLeish and also Benny Addard. He has found his form once again. Remember, he dropped off a little bit at the start of that race, but now he has made his way back up onto the back wheel and starting to put the pressure on.
Yeah, great ride from Ben Addard. Of course, he had success yesterday, finished second in the Australian Pro Supermoto class, and he's doing a great job here as they come through the very tight chicanes and down into the corner at the bottom of the circuit, the hairpin corner. You can see how late Ben Addard, a former Superbike star here in Australia and also in America as well, is on the brakes. Oh, bit of a moment there for Ben Addard.
Well, I'm not sure if that was the front wheel clip, the handlebars clipping a barrier or the front wheel going, but he has lost all that ground that he's just worked so hard to make up. And there is Gibbons still holding himself there in fourth place. A very strong ride indeed as they go back into the dirt section.
Yeah, Gibbons looking very comfortable in the dirt actually as he makes his way across those doubles and down into the short area before the start-finish line, across the start-finish line to complete another lap. Craig Anderson doing a great job here. As we mentioned, it's 10 years since he's ridden a supermoto bike, but he's on a bike 3 to 5 days a week, so he's certainly not lacking in bike fitness.
A great view there of the riders coming through, dealing with some lap riders. That is a big, big point this weekend. There is Addard once again. He's made up all that ground, runs a little wider here. It allows him to straighten up a fraction earlier and get a better run into these ones. The backhand stepping out under brakes once again, but it's very important not to lose too much ground as they go into those turns, I should say, under brakes.
And it's extremely hard to try and overtake someone when they're as sideways as Andy McLeish and Ben Addard are as they come down to each of those very tight corners.
Just a little quick shot there of Megan Rutledge at the guys are coming past. One of the only girls out on the track, and she was holding her own against all these guys. Up the inside, tries Addard, trying to take advantage of the lap riders. He's right beside him this time. Not going to do it. It's going to be a brave move by Addard to try and get around McLeish. Yeah,
McLeish doing a great job here to hold off a very determined Ben Addard as they come through the chicanes and down along the foreshore once again. You can see Ben Addard working so hard, but Megan Rutledge has done a great job so far this weekend in all of the classes she's riding in. To be out there really challenging the guys on board bike number 66, a multiple Australian champion in her own right.
Well, Addard had to get off the gas then, just tapping the back wheel of Megan Rutledge, and that was just enough for McLeish just to get back in front and go into the tar again.
As they come round, it is Ben Addard still trying to find a way past or sideways on the gas as he went there, foot off the peg. He's run off the side of the circuit. He's missed the jumps. And he's lost a little bit of distance as well.
Yeah, I think there just wasn't enough room there as they came onto the dirt. McLeish stepped out a little bit with the back wheel and Addard had nowhere to go. He had to run around the track. But I can tell you can see the frustration there, the little shake of the head. He's doing so much effort to make up all this lost ground every single lap, and then a little thing like that gets in the way. Another lap rider, how will this play out this time? McLeish up the inside of him clean as they go into the left, right, or right, left as they go around. It seems that the frustration is getting to all the riders. McLeish is shaking his head as well.
Well, and also too, Ben Addard realises that time is running out. We're on lap 14 of the 15-lap journey, as you mentioned before, Danny, and he's only got probably a couple of corners and then one more lap to try and find a way past, and he's lost a little bit of distance. He's further behind than what he has been for the last couple of laps.
Yeah, it almost looks like he's backed out just a little bit. I think it looked like he might have thought that was going to be the checkered flag, so he's dropped off a lot, and I would think with that kind of distance now, I don't believe in one lap that he's going to get up there and put that challenge on McLeish.
Considering he's been trying to get past all lap, McLeish is improving very hard to try and get past. Oh, so deep on the brakes down there. Ben Addard did a great job to try and get past that back marker and give himself a fighting chance over these last couple of laps. But there is no doubt, certainly, about who is going to win this race. Here he comes, Marcus Klaas, to take another race win. That will make it 4 for the weekend as he comes round on the final lap. A classy performance from the German as he takes the checkered flag and 25 valuable points for the FIM Oceania Supermoto Championship. Gage McAllister will take second despite the injuries that he had yesterday. A brave effort from the 5-time AMA champion to take out second place, and Craig Anderson will wrap up third place, the leading Australian as he came across the line. Damon Gibbons and Andrew McLeish rounded out the top 5 with Ben Addard in a very close 6th place, just ahead of Jared Wilson, Lee Stevens, Brad Swallow and Rick Olsen, the 2 locals in 9th and 10th. Marcus Klaas gave a masterclass in race 1. What can he do in races 2 and 3? Coming up after the break. Megan Rutledge is one of Australia's highest profile female motocross riders, and after some time out of the saddle following injury, is keen to get back on track this weekend at Newcastle.
Just over 3 years ago, I damaged my right thumb really quite bad. I had 15 breaks and they weren't actually sure if they were going to be able to fix it, or when they fixed it, whether I was going to be able to use it. And it has taken 3 years of rehab, physio, tears, dramas, everything to try and get through it. And just this year, we've managed to put a stop to the pain and get me back out riding 100%. I've had a fantastic year, and as I said, at the end of last year I was ready to throw the towel in. I never wanted to see the side of a motorbike again, so to come out this year pain-free, be able to have an absolute blast on the bike, win the Queen of MX, win the Women's National Championships, had our desert race. Basically, I've had an undefeated year. It's put the smile back on my face, it's put the enjoyment back into racing, and yeah, hopefully the thumb stays good and we can keep that winning attitude up. I'm feeling really good on the track, having an absolute blast. Nice fast straights out there, and obviously the dirt section's a lot shorter this year, and I guess that's where I shine coming from motocross, really having a bit of fun on the dirt out there as well. It's really good seeing the girls sports side of it starting to grow. It has been pretty poor, and now we're getting more and more girls. The reason I do it is I'm competitive. It doesn't matter what I do. Everything I do is competitive, whether it's going to the gym with a friend or going for a run, going for a swim, it doesn't matter. I've just got this competitive nature. Love anything that gives me a massive adrenaline rush. So this does both. It allows me to be competitive, it allows that adrenaline rush, and yeah, I just wouldn't choose anything else. I absolutely love it.
Excitement in the crowd is building because we are getting ready for the FIM Oceania Supermoto race number 2 here at the Newcastle International Supermoto. Great crowd in here on Father's Day to take in the action. But first, let's have a look at the action from the vets and the women's. As the vets got away, you could notice there that the track is wet because it has been raining in between events, and the speed is somewhat considerably down, Danny Ham, as they make their way up the foreshore for the first time.
Very slippery conditions, and most of these guys are still on the slick tyre. Now, one thing we did notice, there was a jump start by number 17, Rossini, and also that time around, this is a second start for the women's race within the same race. That was Megan Rutledge on the 66 green bike that actually jump started and then penalised herself. So a good move for her to go back, but I think she's going to have the speed to get up there and battle with the boys.
Well, we noticed that Rossini didn't take any penalty. He got away with the leaders. There he is on board bike number 17 as they make their way around. I think that may be Eric Chia, our visitor from Singapore, has had a crash early on in the vets as well. And he's been here the last couple of years, Eric Chia. Obviously loves this circuit, loves coming back to the Hunter region and Newcastle.
Really shows how slippery it is as they come back onto the tar. That is Darren Webb having the same problems and trying to turn back around into the barriers, but so slippery. If you're not ready for it, it can catch you out very quick.
Well, and probably even in this race, Danny, the tar would actually be slipperier than the dirt, as you can see the riders making their way off the dirt there. Well, there's Rossini, looks like he's taking his penalty. I think the rider on bike number 71's also thought the penalty was for him as well. The rest of the competitors continue on as they make their way down the foreshore. There's Rossini back on track and trying to make up the 10 seconds that he lost in that jump start penalty.
Bouncing off the barriers, the only way to get around the track with the conditions like this. But the fastest guy out there in the vets class, this man, the 101 of Aaron Watson, comes around and he will gain himself another championship win.
Congratulations to Aaron Watson. Megan Rutledge on 66 does take the win in the women's for a perfect score. Finishes 8th outright in the combined field, but Aaron Watson takes the win from Rob Jones and Ben Zacher, with Michael Ricks and Eric Chia getting through to finish in 5th place. Stephen Rossini, Darren Webb, Megan Rutledge, Daryl Mallam and Lara Cloak rounding out the top 10. Now it's time for the Australian Open Championship race number 3. You can see the boats coming into the working harbour at the back of Newcastle there. Andy McLeish lines up on pole position on board bike number 217. Looks like a problem there for Jason Morris on board bike number 61. Oh, is that Matoshi Amori, our Japanese visitor as well? Looks like he's hit one of the soft hay bales and he's gone down.
Never a good thing off the start to stall a bike, but I'm surprised how great we got away with that. That could have been much, much worse.
Yeah, red flag stoppage, so the riders will come back and take up their positions. There's Matoshi Amori, one of the real attractions of the Newcastle International Supermoto. All the way out from Japan, getting ready for a restart now. Oh, look like a couple of jump starts there. The officials may be working overtime, but Danny Ham, everyone gets away cleanly, which is a great result after that confusion in the first start.
very obvious that the track has dried up, but it's still not that much traction out there. We see a few of the riders all getting a little bit loose. Toby Tyson there on the 744 back wheel chattering as they go down into that tight turn. He runs himself in third place.
And while Andy McLeish enjoyed a pretty handy lead over the rest of the field, a red flag stoppage called an early end to the race, with McLeish taking the victory in the Australian Open Supermoto class. And that rider there receiving the very best of attention from Race Safe, immediately on the scene to attend to the injured rider. McLeish takes the win from Steve Jeffrian, John Douglas, Toby Tyson, Juan Carlos Lopez, Darren Webb in 6, Jesse Sutherland, Paul Ellis, Harley Pickett and Steve McQueen rounded out the top 10. Time now for race 2 in the FIM Oceania Supermoto Championship. Riders making their way back round onto the grid, take up their positions. The crowd's filing in. The international superstars have drawn a great crowd here on the Newcastle Foreshore. And starting from pole position will be our American visitor Gage McAllister with Marcus Class in second. Third place will be Damon Gibbons from Western Australia on board bike number 147. In fourth place will be Ben Attard. Fifth place, Andy McLeish. And rounding out the second row of the grid, the veteran Craig Anderson on board bike 100. On board with Brad Swallow starting from about the fourth row of the grid. We can hear the revs rise now. The field will get away. Oh, a bit of a jump start there, it looks like as well, from one of the riders just on the row in front of Brad Swallow as they steam down into turn 1 for the first time. It is Marcus Class that takes the lead from McAllister and Anderson.
Class is going to be hard to beat from here as they go down into the tight corner at the end of the fastest part of the track. There is McAllister. Attard up the inside of Andy McLeish this time. He does not want to repeat of the last time now. Can Gage McAllister stick to the back wheel of our visiting German rider?
Well, you see Ben Attard is also ahead of bike number 217 of Andy McLeish. They had a great battle in race number 1 and Ben Attard will be very pleased to see himself because he spent the whole entire last race trying to get past the 217 machine.
Another rider that really benefited off the start that time around was Craig Anderson. He was in 6th, second row of the grid, and he sits himself there in third place after the first lap.
Jared Wilson doing a pretty good job too on the 333 machine, and right behind him Brad Swallow on bike number 56. Had never raced a supermoto machine, had never ridden a supermoto machine before this weekend. Borrowed Matt Walters' supermoto wheels and he's out here doing a great job, and there he is on bike number 56.
You can see the difference in the lean angles on this tar section. You watch Craig Anderson come through, stands right up. He's not fully adjusted to the tar sections just yet, but the guys with the experience like these two here that we ride with and the guy in front, Benny Attard, they know exactly what to do on the tar. And the same when you watch our international riders as well. They really lay it over in these turns.
Yeah, I'll tell you, it's not doing Craig Anderson any harm though, because he certainly is showing a great turn of speed here this weekend on board bike number 100. Still sitting comfortably in third place. Oh, big crash there at the start of the dirt section. Bike number 166 going down hard.
That was John Bartley hitting the ground there in the very loose dirt section as they come back onto the tar. Benny Attard just dropping through the bottom of the screen there. Jared Wilson also having a good one as we see another rider collecting a penalty for his jump start.
Yeah, here's a replay of that machine going down. You can see the back end stepped out very hard as he got on the gas in the dirt. That's once again the transition, Danny, from tar to dirt, catching riders out.
And it's a very loose dirt section compared to what they're probably used to. You know, these tyres work well on hard dirt, but when it becomes loose like that, there is not a lot of grip to try and power through those corners. Here is Craig Anderson on the 100, still commanding down third place, and a good battle developing right here between Gibbons and Attard.
Yeah, Attard seems to be spending the entire weekend trying to find his way past extremely wide supermoto machines on the brakes, and you can see how hard he's pushing there, front wheel in the air as he comes out of that section through the tar. Tries to get the drive out of the corner. We're heading back into the dirt section now. This is the loose packed dirt section, which has caught a few riders out. There goes Gibbons across that jump, catching up onto the back of Anderson. It looks, where did Ben Attard go? He dropped off a little bit and then he's had a crash as they came into the hard packed dirt area that signals the end of a lap here at the Newcastle International Supermoto.
Well, there is Benny Attard just trying to get himself back into this race. It looked like the front wheel might have stepped out just a little bit as they did that progression down onto the tar from the dirt. Now keep your eye, here we are on board with Benny Attard. You watch this off this jump here, and I think he's bounces up there, loses the back end, and then spits him around the other way. A very awkward crash, that one.
Yeah, but he lost a bit of distance out of the previous corner. I think he may have just got a little bit desperate there. You can see how much distance he lost. There's on board with Andy McLeish, who's behind Ben Attard. And got on the power extremely hard, and the back end came around, and that was the end of Ben Haddad's challenge to Damon Gibbons for 4th place. Look at Ando having a look over his shoulder all the time in the world.
As we go on board with Brad Swallow having an excellent ride here, considering it's his first time out on the Supermoto.
Yes, he's adapted very well to the Supermoto machine. Of course, an extremely experienced Superbike rider. There's a big crash. And, I think you might have put the mocker on him there, Danny Ham, because he was going extremely well. He's had a big crash there. Looks like he's going to try and get the bike up, and no better place to see what happened there than we're actually on board with him when he crashed into that barrier. Not the first person that's been caught out by a barrier here this weekend. You can see him in the back end of that shot there, trying to get the Kawasaki KX450 going again. Looks like he's been successful, and he's back in the race.
Right in front of Ben Haddad. And how good is Brad Swallow? This camera that we're riding with here was facing forward, and now he's turned around perfectly to look at him doing all the work.
There you can see him pushing his handguard back down into position there. Had a great ride in the first race, finished in 9th place, just ahead of his fellow Hunter region resident Rick Olsen, another former Superbike rider. As they come across into the dirt section, you can see Ben Haddad has been able to get ahead, but coming up behind is the man of the moment, Marcus Klaas, on board bike number 1. He certainly has been in a class of his own this weekend. A comfortable lead in this race.
They're about to get schooled. Well, if they can keep up, they'll get schooled by a guy that really knows how to throw this bike around. Marcus Klaas there on the number 1 machine, absolutely flying through those chicanes. I'd love to see the difference in his top end speed. Now just have a look at the handlebars here. You'll see the motion of them clipping the barrier just here on the right flick, bang, sends him back the other way. And down he goes to have a look at this tar at a very, very close proximity.
I reckon he's lucky he had handguards there, because otherwise he could have done some serious damage to his hand. Marcus Klaas, is it Megan Rutledge that he was coming up behind there? Megan doing a great job once again, in with the best riders in the FIM Oceania Championship. But Marcus Klaas, the thing that's amazed me about him is his speed through the corners, and then as you mentioned, he has got great top end speed, but the control of the machine, it doesn't look to be sideways or out of control.
No, very tidy. Very tidy on the bike. One thing that I have noticed though is that he sits a long way back on the bike. Now, I don't know if that's more of a road race technique or the fact that he's just trying to get a little bit more grip down onto the rear wheel coming through this dirt section. But we've seen it all weekend. He's very fast in the dirt, and watching him go through these turns right here, it's been very impressive. He only misses those barriers by millimeters each time he goes through. Shows the precision that it takes to ride at the speed that he does.
Well, only just missed out on the World Championship last year. He'll be heading back overseas to continue that challenge for the 2018 Championship. Immediately after he finishes here this weekend, Ben Haddad surging his way back through the field. We mentioned about Marcus Klaas being pretty much in line and not sideways. Not so Ben Haddad. He is extremely sideways and oh so good to watch.
He loves to throw that thing around. And there's two different techniques here. You've got the road race style where you can just turn into the turn, or you can back it in. Now the backing in, almost, if you're a motocross rider will understand, it squares you up so you can point straight to where you need to go as you go into the turn, and then blast with the accelerator straight out. Watching him through the dirt here though, he's got plenty of drive, and that is where we've seen him make up a lot of ground. There is Gage McAllister, also a rider that's very good on the dirt. Yeah, doing a brave effort here, Gage McAllister this weekend. Of course, injured himself in the arm yesterday. I've seen some pictures of his arm. That's a nasty injury. How he's out there riding today, it's sheer guts and determination from the multi-time AMA champion as he comes down into the hairpin at the bottom end of the circuit. Drives out and back up towards the dirt section here. He's going to have a bit of lap traffic. Ben Haddad just ahead of him. Ben Haddad certainly outside of the top 10, unlike where he was battling for a top 5 position yesterday. Allows Gage McAllister on the 25 machine. Oh, a bit of a barrier there or something come flying up and hit him. But as they come back into the dirt section, doing a great job to maintain second position. A couple more laps left to go for him, and I know he's going to be feeling it now. He actually got stitches in that arm yesterday, actually sliced him open. So, as we've mentioned, so good to actually be out there and be on the bike, riding as fast as he is. But I know that he's got bigger things that he needs to worry about back home in America. So he's out here to get the best result he can, but not do any more damage before he heads home.
Yeah, down the foreshore we go once again. There's McAllister coming up on more lap traffic. Ben Haddad doing a great job to hang on to the back of him as well.
Yeah, Benny Haddad probably trying to pick up some lines and speed also and see exactly what Gage is doing as they go through here. I noticed Benny seems to run a little wide each time he goes into those chicane sections. There is Marcus Klaas. So how fast did he come through that turn? Barely threw up any dirt, as if he was riding on the tar.
Well, round into the dirt section once again. He will come round to get the last lap board as they head off around through the dirt section. Marcus Klaas has got a pretty handy lead over the rest of the field. There it is, the last lap board out, giving all of those competitors. Jared Brook on board buck number J21, also doing a great job and holding down a position just outside of the top 10.
As we come back onto the dirt there, you can see the back wheels are very, very dirty, and they start to clean themselves only after they get onto the tar and get on the accelerator. Now, while the dirt's there, it's very slippery on those tyres, and you'll see a lot of those guys getting a little bit loose under acceleration until that dirt's cleared. Then they can get back to full speed. There is Benny Addard, I tell you. He's watching and he's learning, I think, going into race 3, trying to pick up a bit more speed.
Well, you can see Brett Rowe on board bike number 73 just allowed him to come flying past, and the speed differential was unbelievable. The speed differential between everybody else and this man is also unbelievable. Across the line, Marcus Class, once again in a class of his own, takes the victory. Gage McAllister will come round to take second place. There he is out of the final corner now, takes the checkered flag, a brave ride from the American. And third place is rounded out once again by the Australian veteran Craig Anderson on board bike number 100 across the line to round out the podium. Fourth place was Damon Gibbons on board the 147 machine. Andy McLeish got up to fifth on board 217. Then it was Jared Wilson. Rick Olsen in seventh place. Lee Stevens in eighth. Ethan Bailey in ninth place. And Warren Gill rounds out the top 10. The German Marcus Class has been in a class of his own so far here this weekend at Newcastle. Can he make it a perfect round? 3 out of 3. Join us after this break. Three-time Superbike World Champion Troy Bayliss and son Ollie have been contesting the 2018 Australian Superbike Championship. But this weekend, their focus is 100% on the Newcastle International Supermoto.
Last year, we had a great time over at the showgrounds. This year, we're at the Foreshore. We've got a lot of international riders here. It's a great facility, and it's very easy for people to come down and take a look, especially on Father's Day. It should be a good day out. Yeah, I'm actually loving being back on the bike again. It's been really good for me to get me back on track with health and fitness, and also at the track being with Ollie. We have a great time together, and it's a very difficult one to explain. My best time is like when we actually have a ride together at a practice day or something. It's really, you can't beat that.
I love sort of all types of racing, and especially on a bike, and just, you know, coming from road bikes to this, it's pretty similar, and, you know, my background is sort of in dirt track, and yeah, it's just a mix of everything, and at this place, it's just so good to have something like this. We've ridden a few times, we've raced a few times, and I've pretty much beat them in every single one. I've got a faster lap, but at home as well, you know, we sort of train together, and it's sort of a competition for everything.
Yeah, our oldest boy Mitch, he does MMA, so if we're all together in the mornings, it's like, you know, it's like three blokes together just talking it up, and it's really good for me. It helps keep me young as well.
Great to see Troy and Ollie Bayliss out here at Newcastle Supermoto. Let's have a look at Ollie in action in race number 2 of the juniors. Highlights from yesterday's race as they take up their positions on the grid. Ollie starts it from the front row of the grid and gets a great jump off the line, leads them down through the first chicane for the first time. Cody Stevens also got a great start on board bike number 47, and in third place was John Littress on board bike number 308.
Great to see that the juniors got an inclusion into this race. They really get to experience some of the different stuff with the Supermoto, but it wasn't going to be all Ollie's way, as we see right here. Just getting a little bit loose coming onto the dirt section, and then it slipped him back the other way. Managed to keep it upright though, so a great effort there, drops back to 4th. Yeah, great ride there from Ollie Bayliss to get the bike back up and going again. Look at this battle though between Johnny Littress on the brakes, all of that road racing experience that he's got recently coming to the fore there as he went down on the brakes inside Cody on board bike number 47. As they came down into this corner though, unfortunately Cody Stevens on 47 got it all wrong, was able to get up quickly, pick up the bike, but had to relegate one position as Ollie Bayliss made his way through, charging back through the field. It was all about this man though. Johnny Littress comes around to take the checkered flag. He may be small in stature, but he is big on talent. Littress takes the win by 9.3 seconds over Ollie Bayliss. Cody Stevens rounds out the podium in third place, Sam Simpson in fourth, and Damon Ellis rounds out the top 5. Highlights for race number 2 of the Australian Junior Lights Championship, where we'll see riders under 13 years of age on a mixture of 2- and 4-stroke machinery. As they get underway, it is the 621 machine starting from pole position of Luke Robertson that gets a fair start and has to play second fiddle as they head down into the first chicane for the first time. And it is Harrison Voigt on 29H that leads the field down the foreshore for the first time. I'll tell you what, these kids did not hold back. They were flying around here, and the battles they had was absolutely incredible.
You can hear the tyres squealing as they come down. Great mix too, Danny, between both big wheel and small wheel machines, as Harrison Voigt got it all wrong there, slips back a couple of places on 29H and has to try and work his way back through the field.
144 there of Lucas Quinn. He's running off into the curbing there, using up all the road, but it wasn't long before we saw Harrison Voigt move himself back up into the lead.
Yeah, good move on Levi Stevens there to get back up into the lead through that mulchi section that's caught many riders out once again. The juniors having to play second fiddle to the mulch section, which came out victorious, and the 144 machine of Lucas Quinn goes down for a second time.
Tough run for Lucas there. He was doing so well, as the rest of the guys also having some troubles there. That was our 621 of Luke Robertson dealing with possibly one of our back markers, but he kept it going.
Yeah, Luke Robertson lost the lead there. He's back now to second place, but coming round, it is the race winner, Harrison Voigt, on board bike number 29H, that takes the win, and Luke Robertson on 621 takes second place. A great result for him. Rounding out the top of the podium is Levi Stevens on board bike number 46. In fourth place was Braden Bradford, with Jethro Carriage rounding out the top 5. Time for the final event here at the FIM Oceania Supermoto Championship, race number 3. Let's go down to the grid with Danny Ham, former winner at this event.
We're going to get to an interview quickly with Ben Addard, but before we do that, I just want to quickly show you something. You see the riders when they get down to the start line here, they've all been pushing down on the front wheel. Now, it's all about this little button here. What they do is they compress the forks, try and get the weight all onto the front wheel so that when the weight transfers to the back, they're not wheeling off the start line, and they can continue to hold the throttle up wide open until they get to the first turn. But let's just quickly drop back here for a second to Benny Addard. Ben, good ride last time, however, you ended up on the ground again. What's going on, mate? The speed is there.
Oh yeah, look, the speed's there, the body's not. It was a bit frustrating in that first race, like we went really fast in qualifying and thought, but got stuck there, and then I didn't want that to happen again in race 2, and look, just got a bit excited and stepped off it, but we'll see how we go this time.
Once again, Gage McAllister will start from pole position with Marcus Class in second, and Damon Gibbons on the front row of the grid on board bike number 147. On the second row of the grid, it will be that man, Ben Attard, joined there by Andrew McLeish, and rounding out the top 2 rows, it is Craig Anderson, the Australian veteran, on board bike number 100. As we're on board now with Andy McLeish starting from that second row of the grid. The red flag is at the front of the grid. Revs will build to a crescendo as we get ready to go into the starter's hand. The red lights are on. And we're away. Great start from all of the front row of the grid. Look like McAllister got a good jump off the middle of the front row, and he leads them as they come through the chicane for the first time. On board once again with Brad Swallow as they come down the foreshore for the first time. It is McAllister, the American, leading from Class, the German, with Gibbons in third.
Benny Addard has done a great start. He sits there in 4th place, looking to redeem himself after these last couple of races. He's got plenty of speed there. Is Anderson also right in behind them as well?
Looked like a great start too from Lee Stevens on board bike number 88, sitting right behind that front group there, back in about 5th position. You can see him there. Also, is that Brad Swallow's got a great start on board bike number 56 as well, right up with the leaders.
On board there with Andrew McLeish. That is Attard just in front of him. But this is what we really wanted to see. Gage McAllister putting it to Marcus Class in this race. He's in front of him at the moment. It's going to be a tough one. Will he be able to hold him out for the rest of this?
It'll be a good comparison to two completely different styles of the American and the German. Marcus Class looks like he's not trying all that hard, whereas Gage McAllister has got the bike sideways at every single opportunity. We jump on board now with Ben Addard. Look at the corner speed. The drive out of that corner. What a dive down the inside. Oh, they've both run wide into the corner and hit the barriers.
Ben Addard just way too deep. He had a good speed coming out of that the chicane there, and they could not pull that Husqvarna up going into the tightest turn on the track. Keep your eye on it here. Great run. Clips the barrier even up the inside, but just leaves the brakes too late and runs out of real estate. Both of the riders going down. Just a racing incident, not a deliberate thing, but Benny Addard will be beside himself.
Well, and Damon's Gibbon essentially left there with nowhere to go. And back at the front now, look how close these two are. It's the American versus the German as they come out of the dirt section and back across the start-finish line to complete the 4th lap of this 15-lap journey. Back down the foreshore they go again with the Class glued to the tail of McAllister.
Well, look at the speed of Class coming through these chicanes. He's been strong all day long getting through there. Not quite close enough this time around. Very good onto the brakes. Goes wider here to try and get a bit of a better, straighter run through this next part, but I'd say it's going to be the dirt section where we see this pass be made.
Well, we can see the difference in the styles too, with McAllister taking his foot off at every opportunity, where I've noticed that Class doesn't seem to take his foot off the pegs. Back into the dirt section they go, this very loose and loamy section that has caught many riders out this weekend. No trouble for these two as they make their way through. They are all class, both of them.
Slightly wide that time around though it was for Gage McAllister. Lost the rear wheel and doing so loses all the drive as well. But that allows Marcus Class just to go around the outside of him and get a clean run into that left turn on the dirt before the finish line, and that puts him into the lead. A good pass right there. Keep your eye on it right here. Gage just a little bit of traction loss, and the good drive there by Marcus Class allows him to take that position.
He just seems to be able to find traction where other riders can't seem to find it, and that was a perfect example. Having a look at their lap times too, they are literally 2 seconds a lap faster than anyone else out on track.
There's one thing you have to do on the dirt is not be too aggressive on the throttle so that you don't get that wheel spin, but here we see Ben Attard now closing in on the back of Craig Anderson. Now, Craig Anderson has done a lot of laps this weekend, and I know he's feeling it. You can see there's not as much intensity in the final race of the day as we saw early on in the piece today, but he's still holding up Ben Attard, doing a good job there in third place.
Yeah, this is a great example too of two riders that have got strong sections, Danny, at completely different parts of the track. Ben Attard with all the road racing experience, and of course Craig Anderson, a legend in Australian motocross and supercross.
And very smooth through here, and that is the big key too on the dirt, is to make sure that you're nice and smooth, the back end doesn't step out and you get good drive. But as you said, we're onto the tar now. This is the part where Benny Attard is very strong, and particularly down here in the braking section of the tightest turn on the track. A bit more speed through the chicane. He's looking to the inside, but Anderson has it covered for the moment.
Might have been a little gun shy going down into there on that lap as well. Of course, we saw what happened before when he ran Gibbons wide and cost both of them a lot of time.
That's right, and then we get into the dirt section up here again. We should see Craig Anderson pull that lead back out. He's going to make it hard for Attard to actually make the pass. He makes up all of that ground every time, but right there you can see it. Anderson pulls away again once they hit the dirt.
And also too, that transition from the dirt back into the tar section where the dirt is all over the tyres. Anderson's smooth style obviously gets him great drive out of this corner, coming up here as they turn left and head down the foreshore once again.
Well, there is the replay, just looking down the inside, and you're right, it's the nightmares of only a couple of laps previous to that. I'm sure he didn't want to repeat it, but that there is the drive difference, I should say, between Anderson and Attard, and Attard actually wasn't able to make the jump that time around.
Yeah, you can see Ben Attard trying to get the power down on the big Husqvarna as we go back on board now with Andy McLeish on board 217. He's had a pretty successful weekend this weekend. The Queenslander now residing down on the Sunshine Coast as they come out of the chicane. He's trying to find his way past bike 301 of Warren Gill. And Gill looking pretty smooth through that dirt and loamy section. But as you mentioned before, Danny, the contrast between that section and then this more hard pack section requiring two completely different approaches.
Exactly right. This part here being a little bit firmer. They had a good amount of water before it. It allows a bit more traction, whereas the loose dirt, or what it was wood chip on that other section, really allows for zero traction. So you have to tiptoe all the way through there just to be able to make it around. McLeish having a good ride in this one.
Yeah, certainly not tiptoeing through these chicanes. Full power as they come down into the braking area. Gage McAllister once again doing a brave job to hang on to second place. He did lead Marcus Class for those first couple of laps, but now the class of the German is starting to shine through.
There is Tim Bujos on the 48 machine entering into the KYT turn there. Just getting around over those little doubles and having a great ride as well today. He sits there in front of Swallow on the 56 machine at the Kawasaki.
Yeah, master of several disciplines of motorcycle racing is the Western Australian Tim Bujos, and doing a great job this weekend, holding out Brad Swallow, who, as we've mentioned, having his first ever ride. Oh, more late braking down into the final corner. That was the 301 machine of Warren Gill, who's holding just a position inside the top 10 in 9th position. But here's our race leader, Marcus Class, has got a pretty handy lead over Gage McAllister as they come down on this penultimate lap now. McAllister has been braver than brave this weekend, Danny Ham. To ride with the injury that he's got to his arm is a sensational effort. You can see how physical supermoto racing is, especially through that section, the KYT corner, and then back here into the hard pack section as Class is about to get the last lap board.
Well, there's the beautiful smooth style that we spoke of earlier with Marcus Class. You are right, only one lap to go. He's done everything right in this race. just making his way through some of the lap riders. Now, I don't know if you noticed it last time around, but Marcus Class, and we heard it a lot over the weekend, is that they're yelling at the riders. They are just yelling, get out of the road. It's so hard to get past these lap riders in these tight turns.
Well, I think that was Rick Olsen on board bike number 20 there, just moving aside and allowing Marcus Class to come through.
There is Gage McAllister, the American rider, still sitting in second, battling his way through the lap riders. A valiant effort just to be out there today, running the pace he has.
Well, through KYT, the world-class helmet corner is the world-class rider, Marcus Class. Then he will come round to take another victory. That will make it 3 from 3. In fact, 6 from 6 over his 6 races for the weekend. He has been all class here at Newcastle International Supermoto and rounds out a perfect weekend on board the KTM. Coming across the line in second place will be Gage McAllister on bike number 25. And in third place will be Craig Anderson on board bike number 100. A great result for the Australian veteran as well. Damon Gibbons finished in 4th place. Ben Attard climbed all the way back up to 5th. Lee Stevens in 6th. Rick Olsen in 7th. Ethan Bailey in 8th, Warren Gill in 9th, and John Bartley rounds out the top 10. Congratulations to Marcus Class, the overall victor here this weekend. Also thanks to the New South Wales Government. Visit newsouthwales.com, the City of Newcastle, the Newcastle Now Business Improvement Association, Watson Demolition and Earthworks, KYT Helmet and Boyd Events. We'll see you next year.